Hi, everyone. Andy Giacomazzi with you again with a new edition of Academics Talking Academics in Virtual Elevators, where we take that classic elevator pitch to a whole new level. Today, we welcome Dr. Jeff Lyons into the elevator. Jeff is a political science professor who studies American politics, public opinion, political behavior, political psychology, and state politics. And if that weren't enough, Jeff is the survey research director in the School of Public Service at Boise State University. And he's here today to talk surveys with us. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Before we get started, what floor would you like to go to first?
Let's go up to the seventh.
Seventh. Okay, we got the seventh floor pressed. And once we get to the seventh, we'll stop, possibly let some people in, let some people out, and then go to another floor if you're okay with that.
Sounds good.
Jeff, first on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, where 1 equals easy and 5 is very tough, how hard is it to put together an effective survey? A little survey humor there for you.
That's good. I would say it's a 4 or even a 5. It's really challenging. You know, when we do these surveys, we reach out to about 1,000 people across the state of Idaho. And what we're trying to do is have those 1,000 people represent a state of 1.8 million people. So you're always concerned about the extent to which the 1,000 that you talk about look like and think like the broader 1.8 million. So there's a lot of challenges in thinking through how you go about contacting these people.
Yeah, that's super important to get that representative sample. Otherwise, your survey responses aren't as meaningful or generalizable to the entire population. What are some other challenging aspects of running these large surveys like you do here in Idaho, Jeff?
I think one of the hardest parts of the whole thing is trying to get the questions right, trying to write questions that both capture the complexity and the realities of the policy world. Policymakers are oftentimes dealing with some very nuanced and complex topics, but trying to write them in a way that when you call somebody on the phone, it's easily understandable. You know, people are living their lives. They could have kids yelling or dogs barking and a lot of things going on. So you're always trying to strike a balance between capturing the realities, but still making it easy to digest.
Yeah, and also I would imagine making those questions engaging enough for people to really want to answer as well, right?
Exactly right. Making them engaging and giving responses that accurately capture the full range of possible thoughts that people could have.
You know, we mentioned the Idaho Policy Survey. You and your colleagues over at the Idaho Policy Institute, Vanessa Fry and Matthew May, have been presenting the findings of the 6th annual Idaho Public Policy Survey that was just released. What are some of the key findings from that survey?
You know, it's really interesting. This past year has been a wild one in so many different ways, especially, looking at the coronavirus pandemic. But we've been asking a lot of questions consistently over time. And while I walked into this year thinking maybe we would see 2020 be a weird year or an aberration in our survey data, it looked very, very similar to our previous years. Despite the pandemic, Idahoans still see, for example, education as the top issue that needs to be addressed in the state. Jobs and the economy remain at the top of people's minds. So even in a wild year like we've just seen, a lot of things have stayed the same.
Yeah, some consistency there for sure. Jobs, economy, education. Anything there surprise you this year?
You know, I don't know that I would say it was surprising, but we always try to make the survey really timely and speak to issues that are going on. So we asked a lot of questions about the COVID-19 pandemic this year. And one of the important things we asked was what people's receptiveness to a vaccine would be. And what we found was that a pretty narrow majority, but a small majority of Idahoans, about 54%, said that they would be likely to get a vaccine. But a pretty large group at 38% said they would probably or definitely not get a vaccine. So as we think about public health challenges moving forward, there's probably some work that's going to need to be done in the state to convince people to get vaccinated.
But it's so awesome that we actually have that representative data. So at least we have a baseline to be working on in terms of who's willing and who's not willing to get vaccinated at this point.
Yeah, that's the hope. We seek to be a resource to people who are tackling these challenges every day and to provide a kind of information that otherwise is pretty scarce in Idaho. There's not a whole lot of publicly available survey data in this state.
You know, I think it's obvious now that creating and administering a survey is probably more complicated than it looks. If someone were interested in conducting a survey or maybe even adding a question to our Idaho Public Policy Survey, whom should they contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Idaho Policy Institute, which is a part of the School of Public Service, does a lot of survey work for a number of different kinds of people around the state who are trying to tackle these kinds of challenges. Contacting Vanessa Fry, who's the director of the Idaho Policy Institute, or you can email me, Jeff Lyons. I'm always happy to chat with people about surveys that they might want to conduct or their own challenges that they're having.
Finally, Jeff, and I like to put my demographic questions at the end of my interviews. I know that there's, some different schools of thought on that. So yes, no, or prefer not to answer. Are you a resident of the state of Idaho?
I am a resident of the state of Idaho.
Good. And finally, on a scale of 1 to 7, how enjoyable, if enjoyable at all, like the way I balanced that question, did you find your elevator interview?
I'm going to say a 6, only because we didn't get to talk for longer, Andy.
Oh, I love to hear that. We'll get you on longer next time. Thank you, Jeff Lyons. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody, for watching this edition of Academics, Talking Academics in Virtual Elevators. We'll see you next time.